Good morning everyone, Sage here, you're watching Kalkine TV live from the Sydney studio, and this is the early trades. Let us cast an eye over how the Australian market charter is panning out today. Well, following a strong Wall Street closing, the ASX 200 traded higher during the early trading hours, and the benchmark index was supported by strong gains from the materials and financial sectors. This seems to be reflecting an encouraging day for the Australian shares, as the benchmark index closed the session 0.32% lower yesterday, dragged down by the banking shares as well as the heavyweights. The country's most populous state, Sydney, New South Wales, witnessed a double-digit surge in COVID-19 cases, overshadowing the improved global sentiments. And well, today the top performing stocks in this index during the early trades were AUB Group and Collins Foods, while Chalice Mining, Orocobre Limited and G8 Education were also the leading gainers. Meanwhile, the healthcare players, Sonic Healthcare and CSL, dipped lower. Seek Limited, GPT Group and Redbubble also traded in the red zone. And before we jump to the ASX charter in detail, let us look at the US market performance overnight. The blue chip S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite closed at all-time highs after the markets responded positively to the news of President Biden's $1 trillion infrastructure deal and continued recovery of the US labour market, critical to the government's jobs plan. The S&P 500 was up 0.6% to reach 4,266.5. The Dow Jones gained 0.95% to 34,196.8, while the Nasdaq Composite rose 0.7% to 14,369.7. And the small cap Russell 2000 was up as well, 1.3% to 2,333.6. Democratic and Republican members have been negotiating the bill for the past 2 months. Basically, Biden intends to spend $1 trillion on repairing and building bridges, roads and other infrastructure. And besides, encouraging signs can be witnessed in the labour market. Notably, jobless claims have been declining over the past month, according to the Labor Department. The jobless benefit claims dropped to 411,000 in the week ended June 19th, from the prior week's 418,000. And if we look at triggers of the pumped-up US markets, the Nasdaq Composite climbed to a record close after the electric vehicle giant Tesla Inc. logged 2 back-to-back electrifying sessions, registering one of its biggest consecutive gains in recent times. The stock closed at 4.7%, up on Thursday after its 5.3% surge in the previous session. The Tesla rally may have been triggered after the used car company Cars.com ranked its Model 3 car at #1 spot on the portal's American-made index on Wednesday. Moving on now to the US dollar index, which retreated in a day of choppy trading as investors evaluated the likelihood that the US Fed will be more aggressive with its policies in curbing high inflation if it persists. The index remained well below last week's 2-month high. And now it's time for a small break, but please stay tuned. I'll be back with the latest trending market updates for you only on Kalkine TV.
Tune in to stay updated while on the move.
We will tell you where the crypto craze has reached,
where the property market is headed next,
what the world is doing to become more environmentally friendly,
apart from tracking the daily market charter.
Be on top of the latest news and announcements
with Kalkine TV.
Welcome back. This is Sage, live from the Kalkine studios in Sydney, and you're watching the early trades. Well, before the break, we have taken a glimpse at the US market performance. Let us now look at the major news coming in from the ASX listed stocks, and we'll do that in just a moment after this short break. Get ready to join the top business experts for an insightful live webinar with Kalkine Media, hinged on the pandemic recovery phase. How are businesses gearing up for it? The COVID-19 pandemic has turned the table upside down for businesses across the globe, and as the markets work towards adjusting to the new normal in the pandemic recovery phase, Kalkine Media helps you grab the insights on the business resilience during COVID-19 and beyond. So gear up for a chance to directly hear from the mining, financial services and health and wellness industry veterans on how their businesses are getting ready for the post-pandemic era. We welcome Mr. Peter Malone, CEO of Skin Elements, and Mr. Inderjeet Singh, the Executive Chairman of Fiducian Group. So don't miss your window. Mark your calendars for June 25th, 2021 at 12:30pm Australian Eastern Standard Time, straight from Sydney, Australia, to your screens. Save the date, book your slot right away, and do not forget the link is mentioned in the description box below. Visit kalkinemedia.com or reach out to us on 0290 42 2308. Till then, stay apprised with market moves and trending updates with Kalkine Media. Thank you so much for joining us, viewers. And before the break, we were taking a glimpse at the US market performance. Let us look at the major newsmakers in the Australian share market for the early trades by Kalkine TV. The first big news is the lithium miner Pilbara Minerals jumped up on the board on announcing an approval of the staged restart at its Jujagu operation during the December quarter of 2021. The company anticipated record shipments in the June quarter, and the miner said it expects annual production to be ramped up to approximately 180 to 200,000 dry metric tonnes by mid-calendar year in 2022. And as per the company, this will see the combined annual production capacity of its Pilgangoora project increase to 560 to 580,000 dry metric tonnes. Then the wealth manager AMP edged up on adding the former Bendigo Bank CEO to the board. The company has announced appointment of Mike Hurst, previously the CEO of Bendigo and Adelaide Bank from 2009 to 2018, as an independent non-executive director to its board. Let's now take a look at the travel sector, and we're looking at the operator Flight Centre, traded in the green on launching staff retention plan. And under this program, employees would get share rights if they continued their career at the firm through to the end of 2022. Well, it is interesting to note that participants in the Global Recovery Rights Program will receive a one-off grant of 250 share rights, which will vest in February 2023. They will then be able to exercise their rights and receive an equivalent number of Flight Centre shares. Next up, from the media space, Southern Cross Media zoomed up on a 2-year affiliation with Network 10. Well, Southern Cross has signed an agreement with Network 10 to broadcast channels 10, 10 Bold and 10 Peach, as well as 10 Shake, for 2 years in Queensland and Southern New South Wales and regional Victoria. Meanwhile, the Integrated Property Group, Charter Hall, edged up on an uptick in funds under management, and the company said that its funds under management, or FUM, would rise to 52 billion Australian dollars by the end of June. And as per the group, fund under management has increased $12 billion over the course of the 2021 financial year, representing 28% growth in the metric. And the next newsmaker today is the semiconductor memory technology developer Weebit Nano Limited, skyrocketed on integration success of Selector with ReRAM cell for the standalone market. And the company shared that it has developed the industry's first ever commercial assimilation of an oxide-based ReRAM OxRAM cell with an ovonic threshold switching selector. And this is an important stage in the company's path towards commercialisation in the standalone memory market. Well, as per the company, this achievement is a crucial step towards broadening Weebit's target market beyond embedded non-volatile memory. Let's now take a quick glance over the ASX sectoral charter. The Australian energy majors such as Woodside Petroleum and Oil Search are trading in the red despite the oil price uptick. And on Thursday, the crude oil prices settled higher, hovering near the 3-year highs as the drawdowns in the US inventories and accelerating German economic activity spurred oil demand. In addition, the doubts about the future of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal that could potentially end the US sanctions on Iranian oil exports also supported the rising prices. Brent crude futures settled 0.5% up at US $75.56 per barrel after earlier rising to $75.78. WTI crude futures closed at $73.30 US per barrel after hitting a session high of $73.61 US. And now it's time for another short break, but please stay with us. I'll be back with the latest trending market updates for you only on Kalkine TV.
Tune in to stay updated while on the move.
We will tell you where the crypto craze has reached,
Where the property market is headed next.
what the world is doing to become more environmentally friendly.
Apart from tracking the daily market charter.
Be on top of the latest news and announcements.
With Kalkine TV.
Welcome back. This is Sage, live from the Kalkine TV studios, and you're watching the early trades. Let us move on to the miners space. Heavyweight miners BHP Group and Rio Tinto, as well as Fortescue Metals Group, are trading in the green amid the Chinese coke futures surge to the 9-year highs. So on Thursday, Chinese coke futures surged nearly 4% after the spot market prices rose on fears of tighter supply. And reportedly, the price increase is attributed to safety checks and maintenance being undertaken at domestic coal mines ahead of the 1st July celebrations for the 100-year anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. Insufficient seaborne supply, given China's unofficial ban on Australian coal and resilient steel production in China, has also contributed to the commodity's price increase. The most traded September delivery month of iron ore futures on the Dalian Commodity Exchange was up 1.39% to reach 1,170.50 yuan, and besides, the copper fell for the first time this week on the back of mixed signals from the US Fed, which made investors worried about the timing of interest rate hikes, which could sap demand for the industrial metals. Notably, copper prices have retraced about 12% from a record high of $10,747.50 per tonne reached in May of 2021. However, the ASX listed copper players, Oz Minerals and Sandfire Resources, traded in the green during the early trading hours today. Moving on now to the yellow metal space, Newcrest Mining, Ramelius, Gold Road and Northern Star Resources are inching higher despite the gold prices trading lower in a choppy trading session. Primarily, the mixed cues from the US Fed's officials on the future course of action by the central bank to withdraw its monetary stimulus kept investors wary. And hopefully that information will be of good use to you, but that is all for now. We will be bringing you more stock updates in our upcoming shows, so please stay tuned for more of the live market updates on Kalkine TV across the economy, markets and sectors. Sage signing off.